just kind of hanging out here. If anybody wants to join in and have any questions, I would like, I guess, go over my background. I can do that really every time that I come on here. And I'm so grateful for anybody that's joining in. Drop your questions, drop your comments. I'm here. I guess I could say I'm working tirelessly towards this vision, this goal of mine that I've been over a year working on this, so it's not like a new thing. I've been doing this for a while. And of course, what I'm referring to, if you just joined in, is my site NowMentor, which is a live video site. And the idea is that I can compile all the best content, singular source. What that even means is you have sites like YouTube that, sure, there's a lot of good content if you can find it, but almost like a playlist. If someone can make a playlist of good content, that's really what it takes. So hence what I wanted to do with the site NowMentor. I think there's not enough good content out there, for one. And yeah, there's some good content, but if you have to be able to find it and watch it. So it's scattered, it's fragmented. There's so many different places to find information. But I think the sites that do well are the ones that bring everything together onto the same place. Sort of merging that data together. So I'm streaming on YouTube, I'm streaming on Instagram, and of course I'm streaming on NowMentor. So this is kind of fun. I got different stuff going on here. I'm gonna do this as much as possible. The quarantine sessions. Of course, the title for this session is actually Vision Sessions. The Vision Sessions with me, the founder of NowMentor. And apologies for the messy background here. It's less than ideal, less than optimal, and we'll get it. But sort of what I want to do with our time is have almost an online class. It doesn't have to be that structured, but I want it to be a time of encouragement. People are going to be at the least bored. They're going to be bored when they have this much free time, but also maybe they're panicked. Things are looking okay in some regards, but also in other regards they don't look that fantastic. I guess meaning things are changing big time. So if things get worse or they get better, I'll be here. And that's the point. That's what I'm hoping to do. Just be a positive presence and bring people together that are about the truth and about sharing solid, wholesome news about topics. I did a session on this not too long ago where, well, I guess I was just saying that I'm a little bit frustrated that the news is censored, but they're also supposed to censor the news because people want to hear what they want to hear. And I guess even if they didn't want it to be censored, it's going to be anyways because they have an angle to slant the news towards. So I'll call this site a community, a positive community. It can be political, controversial, news-based. It doesn't really matter what it turns into. We have Blake Wimberly. He's a solid theologian. Of course, we need people that can impart truth and wisdom and encouragement during a trying time like this. This isn't the time to freak out, but I think it's a time for these sorts of ideas to come together and rise up into a sort of trying to think of the word. Well, be a union of sorts. We can come together and be a positive thing, a positive influence, positive messages. And we're all in this together. There's not maybe too much time left. You never know if this is going to be the end of the world, if things are going to get worse before they get better, or if things are just going to get worse continually. It's sort of unknown. And the unknown can be really scary for a lot of people because they don't have any control over it. And so I want to be here for everybody. Anybody that's available, come on and just know that I'm here. I don't think it's okay with things being the same forever. Looks like I just had a little bit of a connection hiccup on YouTube, so sorry if that affected you in any way. And let me know any feedback if you can't hear me, or sort of guiding questions for how you want this session to turn out. Called this session. It's pretty informal. I don't have any notes or any plans really. I just wanted to come on and make the face of this company known. I am the face behind the company. I'm the person that had the vision for this. I'm the person that got this whole thing going. And certainly it wasn't easy, and a lot of really, really hard things came up, but I was able, thankfully, through support from my wife and praying about it, just to be able to get to this point. And I acknowledge that it's far from perfect. There's a lot that needs to be done. But show me another site like this that has people not getting blocked down for sharing the truth. YouTube can get pretty tricky by saying some choice words about the current epidemic that we're facing. I don't want to follow the rules, but I do think if you're going to censor things like that, that's sort of wrong. How can you expect people to know what's going on if you just shut down all the new and real information? So that's not okay. And so instead of getting onto a rant again about that topic, I think that it's okay that we just band together with positivity. I guess I don't feel like I have too much else to say. I would hope that in time some questions come through and that we can build up the community on the other side of who this site is and what we do. It's hard to get people to know what it is that I'm even trying to accomplish with this thing. So I know there's sites like this. There's other sites that would seem to be the same, but I would argue that they're not. They're not in the sense that they do censor content and they prioritize entertainment and things that benefit themselves. And that's a point that I brought up before. Most of the sites are under heavy pressure from either just their own selfishness to stakeholders, if they have people that own the company. Facebook is a giant company. And that was the point that I brought up in the last time. If you have a small company, they're able to much more quickly mobilize to the issues of things. You could say that, like, if you don't have any support, hi, my first viewer, What was I saying? Oh yeah, that you can mobilize with a small company like NowMentor because we don't really have any resistance. There's no stakeholders. It's just me and the developer. Um, so there's big companies, and the argument against that is a big company has more money and a bigger team of people, but they have to get those people to work together in all the same senses. And like that article showed me, it was CNN or something. No, Forbes. I think that article was pretty valuable because it does make sense. People are forced to be innovative, and they're forced to do things that would constitute challenge and recklessness. So I'm hoping in this time that I can get people that are pastors and other mentors, but people like Blake that talk about the Bible. They're not going to get shut down because it's just me, and I host people like that. So assuming that we can overcome financial issues and other technical stuff that's still been coming up here and there. And actually, we are switching over to use the YouTube service. So I think that will make it more reliable. YouTube has an API, and what an API is like you take somebody else's code, the code that YouTube uses, for instance, for YouTube Live, and then you plug it onto your site. So it's like someone's actually on YouTube, but they're actually on your site at the same time. And the thought behind that is that it will be more seamless and integrative with people's YouTube profiles and other existing content. Plus, that YouTube is just a good company. Google has better resources. I don't think that Facebook was as reliable when we used that. We used it for quite a while to stream to before I found that you could just stream right to YouTube. And YouTube is more about video quality, and they auto archive everything for you. So yeah, it's just really the question why we need to exist. And the answer to that is compiling all valuable information and content into a single area. Mm-hmm. It works good on here. We've been having issues on the actual, I guess, NowMentor site or NowMentor if I stream from here to YouTube. It sort of twists up the video. Audio's been good, but that's just a reason to go to YouTube. YouTube is a much more stable platform. I guess I'm not saying that we're becoming YouTube or we're not going to be YouTube, but we're going to use YouTube's resources. I don't know what that looks like exactly. I think the way it would look is people would have their YouTube profile and then they would sign in, like a lot of sites have you just sign into Facebook, and then that would pull everything from YouTube to NowMentor. So it would be a big database of reliable, valuable content, uncensored content. So saying that makes me think that I know YouTube has censored some stuff. People talk about the world health problems right now. They'll take down the video or they'll demonetize it. So I don't know what that's about. Why they would think that's a good thing to take down videos that talk about real stuff. It doesn't really make sense to me. So I think we need more sites that are just unbiased. Unbiased news as we quarantine, and I hear that California is quarantining, so what better a time than now to have this kind of virtual community. Zoom boosted 40%. I think it was like the news thing said that Zoom, who is by Google also, so Zoom went up 40% in like the last week because the students and everybody else that does work, if they're not Microsoft Teams, they're stuck on Zoom. And even Zoom couldn't handle the traffic. Zoom owned by Google. So this makes me wonder if there's a server issue or other things. But definitely I know that if you have a tenfold or 100,000 time increase of people all at once, that you're going to need more spaces for people to be hosted. Now, if we use YouTube servers, which they probably have more than anybody else in the world, YouTube has taken down on at least one platform. Being taken down. Inaccurate. Oh, okay, I see. I think it was instituted with a good intention, but maybe they felt pressure to do that because I don't know how they're screening for it. And the thing is, it's probably a bot. Yeah. And if you look at the news too, it's 95% stuff about health. There's nothing really besides this, which will remain nameless for YouTube's sake. I don't know why. I'm not like thinking people don't just spew out information. Even if they did, you have a bot take it down, because I doubt there's a real person that's screening through all the videos to see if the information is reliable, true, and accurate. It's probably based on keywords, and even just a keyword of saying that if you're CNN or Forbes or NBC or whatever, CBS, it's just to auto remove the video, which has some benefits. But if I don't know, theoretically, if I knew something and I wanted to tell somebody, but it gets taken down every time, that sounds like pretty much Chinese censorship. If the free market can exist online, it's not really a free market. And that's why America is different. We don't have to worry about sites being censored because we want the information. I think that's the scarier part. Besides the obvious health implications, ramifications, if people have this other fallout in a bunch of other areas, businesses are affected, and of course people can rise up in that time too, assuming that they're able to accommodate whatever the needs of the people are. So it's definitely a interesting time at the moment. I don't know. I just don't see how. Yeah. I guess, yeah. It's for safety. In some things, like people were hoarding toilet paper and price gouging on face masks and hand soap and those things, which apparently is illegal. That's like as close as we've come to government censorship. If they can take over and take out the videos that are instilling fear, not that most of them might just be trash videos, but if there are some that have legitimate sources and they mention what's going on, they'll get taken down, which I think, again, is sort of like censorship. If we're not free to say what we think. But then there's like, okay, if we say what we think and then that's hurting somebody else, maybe it's too far. So, yeah, most sites are pretty locked down. And if they weren't, I don't know what would happen. And at what point the government could take over and say that your site is fear mongering. Yeah, this has been, I guess, the first time that I've experienced in my lifetime. And really, other people, I don't think anybody has experienced something this drastic before. As far as I know, most people haven't experienced living through a quarantine or having this level of panic. There's been other things before, like I think the swine flu was one, and some other things here and there. Yeah, price gouging is illegal. It's illegal because I guess the basis is that they're cheating people. Because things are always price gouged if you think about it. There's certain things that are always expensive that shouldn't be. Like, I don't know, certain products. But if they constitute necessity, like toilet paper, hand soap, I don't know, shampoo. But it's not like it's illegal to go out and buy 50 bottles of it, so what's the difference? I'm not planning to buy it, and there's this guy that has. But this is the worst I've seen, the worst most people have probably seen in their lifetime. The level of fear that it causes, the pretty much irrational things that people are doing, like buying toilet paper. But now in hindsight, it makes sense if there's going to be a quarantine for who knows how long. Toilet paper, yeah. I guess it was $50 for toilet paper, but it's not technically a necessity. You could live without it. If it was water bottles and the water, but then you get tap water, assuming your tap doesn't shut down. Because let's say that everybody that does the water, and there's fear of the internet going down. If everybody's stuck in their house, those things can't exist anymore. Trash service, assuming that you have food to eat. Water service, assuming that there are people that are working for them. What about General Electric? Those things have to still keep going. But if they're saying that it's bad enough that everybody else is quarantined, it almost seems like inconsistency. Because you have to have some things out there. If everyone's stuck at home, what are they going to do? They're going to watch TV, read books, be in the internet. Those people have to still be working. And sure, they can work on the internet, but then there's other people like a plumber or something, a mechanic. I guess you wouldn't leave the house, but those trades, if your, I don't know, heater or air conditioning goes down, who's going to fix it? The whole thing kind of implodes. And I don't think that's the logic that really makes sense. Quarantining is actually going to make it worse because there's going to just put a hole through the economy. More so. The stock has just tanked down the last week or two. So my fear is not really about the virus. It's more about all the secondary ramifications of the virus. Yeah, stuff shutting down. I don't know, gas stations closing. Restaurants are takeout only. Yeah, that's the thing. It's conditional because people need their prescriptions. Sure, if you're having a medical emergency, you can go to the doctor's office. But I don't know if there's any point where they would shut down the doctor's offices because it's too dangerous. If they would have home visits, it just doesn't seem like it's really doing anything. If the curve of the virus is slowed down because of this, then sure, it would all make sense. But grocery stores, so you can't leave your house except for to buy groceries. If somebody is sick, what's the difference between that and just not ever being quarantined? So what they're trying to do is, I guess that makes sense. We don't want people to get other people sick. But you can't just shut down the whole world because of something. And it's not really like it's that bad. It is bad, but it's not bad. Grocery stores, I think they can deliver food places deliver, pharmacies deliver, I guess. But I'm just saying, if I was sick, I could still go somewhere and it wouldn't be any different. Unless I just put it on myself not to go out because, oh, I'm sick. Dentists. I was wondering about that, actually. It's not technically a necessity. Unless you're having a cavity or other emergencies. Regular doctor's offices. Mm-hmm. Yeah, things are changing. But it seems like it was worse for some reason last week. Maybe because we didn't expect it to get like this. Now that it's becoming what everyone said it would become, it's less of a scary thing because it's already happening. If it gets to the point where we can't find clean water to drink and the stores are abandoned and there's like the apocalypse going on, then that would be a more serious issue. Which there's rumors of that happening. China has all of our stuff. If they stop bringing it to us, the supply chain just falls on its head. So that's an issue. They don't bring too many food items. So yeah, it's electronics and such. Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks. Well, the mandate thing is new. It's Washington State. It's the same. I guess you could say it's still like the honor system. If you're suspected not feeling well, you should probably stay home. But it's always been the case. It hasn't really changed. People shouldn't leave the house if they're not feeling well. It does seem like bigger states mobilize faster, and I heard that San Francisco had the same thing, the curfew, which I think might have been enacted into a full quarantine. Or it's just the same thing. 24-hour curfew, plus the same, they can't leave your house except for groceries, medical emergencies, and that's pretty much it. No other reason to. Yeah, well, Washington has Seattle. Seattle's a fest of everything, being that they have one of the largest international airports to and from China. I didn't know New York was too bad, but I heard that Ohio has, this was like 2 weeks ago, they had higher than normal rates of incidents. It was saying Ohio had 100,000 confirmed cases, and that number was doubling by the day or every other day. Which I wouldn't expect that to be able to go on forever because they would have to plateau. You can't double 100,000 before you'd max out the whole population of Ohio pretty quickly. So it does seem like it is mostly coastal states. New York, California, Washington. Obviously, California, Washington are on the West Coast. California, I would think like Los Angeles is a huge international hub before they wised up and shut things down. But there's no talk, as far as I know, about anybody shutting down airports because people are moving. It's the 6-foot rule, but if you're not sitting still, like at church or a conference or at work or whatever, and you're moving, so grocery store, the airport, I don't know, whatever else, supposedly if you're moving, which I think is a bunch of hogwash, if you're sick, you're sick. It doesn't really matter how fast you're moving because it's still going to be in the air. And that's what this is. It's airborne. And then they've already come in contact with 20, 30, 50 people that are also going to be compromised. New York would make sense too, though. Yeah, those all line up. International flight pass. New York, California, Los Angeles, Washington, Seattle. New York has JFK, so that's gigantically huge international hub for travel. And I guess that would be the next phase. Huh. Logarithmic in nature. Well, there's a lag on the actual cases, but I don't think it could go on much longer. Either you have everybody's sick or is a carrier of it, or everybody's sick. Because I think this is supposed to be, if one person has it, they can make, I don't know, 10 people sick or something. Whereas the flu is like a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2. This is, I think it's up to 10 times more infectious, just because you can just breathe the air in, or it can go in through your nose, mouth, eyes, pretty much anywhere else. So I would think, being that's logarithmic, I would think that would cap out pretty quickly, since I feel like we've already kind of gotten to the worst of it. Maybe that's just me being naive. It just doesn't seem like much worse could happen with the actual sickness. I'm much more concerned about supply chains being locked in the house without access to food and water, say the internet going down. Yeah, Italy. Actually, I think I heard Italy is doing better. They're improving, but I don't know how that could be true that they're improving if they're also among the worst, or they are the worst with the numbers of people that are compromised. I'm not familiar with South Korea at all. I think actually it says like Africa or South Africa is more or less untouched. Maybe because they don't have that much contact with people coming in and out from different nations. There's not a major airport in most of Africa. I would think South Africa, like Johannesburg, maybe has a major international airport. But if that was the case, yeah. So I think actually the quote unquote people that have it, obviously, is how you get sick. If nobody ever leaves or comes in. So I think that would be the best reason in itself to block off flights. And to tell you the truth, I'm surprised that hasn't happened already. Why wouldn't we have shut down airports? If airports necessitate higher necessity than people's health, because let's say school is less important than traveling, so that's the argument and the logic why we shut down schools. Unless people at the airport are more discerning and not coughing into their hands and touching people, and the kids just don't know better. I think the airport would probably be the worst place to go if you don't want to get sick. High volume of people congregating together, and I don't think there's that much movement. I don't believe that's true, that people in an airport are constantly moving. Yes, they're moving until they get to their gate, and then they sit down for an hour or two. If you can shut down Disneyland, or you can shut down, I would think probably SeaWorld, probably the zoo, and any other theme parks. I don't know about Orlando. They have the Disney thing, I think, too. I'm sure Disney World shut down. Less temperatures. Yeah, people don't go to Africa. Just being honest. That's not really on most people's dream trip itinerary. So this is that they don't have hospital beds. It almost seems to me like it's more of an issue of the other people that come in with more severe things. Because I'm young and healthy, and I don't think this is a threat until it mutates to the point where it's more infectious, more deadly, less, I don't know, beatable. Because I've already heard cases of people that have successfully overcome and they're coming out of it. But then you hear the opposite. There's people that are relatively healthy. Hmm. Yeah, it froze for me too, just for a minute here. I'm also on NowMentor Live, on Instagram Live, and YouTube Live all at the same time. um, yeah, I would think that they'd be limited in their ability to provide adequate health care because they have just less money. So less money, less doctors. People don't want to go there because they don't get paid well. It's a lot of issues. But I do think if it's like Johannesburg or Cape Town, that's a relatively wealthier area. People would be able to go there. And I would expect too that the rates of infection or whatever are higher in those more populous areas. Average death is 81 years old. Yeah, I believe. I think that's why it's almost like not a factor. It's not people that are retired have less contact with outside people that are going to pose a risk to their health. I guess you could say at the most that those people just get sick from somebody else, because it's not like people that are 81 are probably not going to be out of the house as often as somebody else. So what we're doing in quarantining ourselves is doing them a favor, I guess. And they have Social Security coming in, so I think a lot of people would be more set. And I don't know, honestly, what would happen if people can't afford to stay home. I think it's well over half of America lives paycheck to paycheck. So you expect people to suddenly be quarantined, hopefully with pay or partial pay, but that's a serious issue if people can't afford to pay their bills. What do? It almost encourages criminal activity to take place, or, I don't know, otherwise breaking the law. If it's forbidden to go outside, but you can't afford to pay your bills, unless they put a freeze on that too. Well, they don't really have, it's almost like the customers just vanished overnight. They all went poof. It's businesses that are luxury businesses, I guess. The movies, the malls don't need to be open. You don't need to buy new clothes. All I can think of is probably the grocery stores. But if suddenly everybody's not working anymore, you're not going to have the same volume of traffic. Obviously not foot traffic, but purchase traffic. People aren't going to spend as much money if they're making 2/3 of their income or some other modified plan because of the situation. So businesses, yeah, they are hopefully mobilizing, was what that Forbes article said. They could see this as an opportunity to do things different because they had nothing to lose, which is pretty much the case. Whatever we've done so far isn't working. It's making things worse. We're maybe not making it worse, but it's not really helping that much. I can't think of any businesses that have really innovated. Zoom and Microsoft Teams have tried to have people online, but just for business. I don't know what the point of having a business that handles issues that don't exist outside of a vacuum. Like, what thing that comes to mind is my old job where I guess that's probably not a good example, but medical overpayments. let's say that your company was an advertising agency and you work from home, but the work's going to dry up pretty soon because people aren't doing luxury purchases. Let's say you work at a, I don't know, car dealership as a salesperson. You could do marketing emails for so long, but I don't see how that can continue for more than like maybe at most a month. No one needs to buy a new car when they're have other issues. And a lot of these like cloud service businesses or software as a service, Salesforce. Yeah. So it's also hand washing and other stuff that people hopefully do, which is just seems like to me it's just common sense that you wouldn't touch things and you'd be sure to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom. And distancing's always been a good thing. I always sanitize my hands after I go somewhere public. I try to wash my hands or use hand sanitizer. When I get back to the car, just knowing that there's germs everywhere, touching handles isn't like the cleanest thing ever. Hard surfaces, I guess if they were porous, that would be harder for the virus to exist. So if you have like granite or something, it would help it to live on that surface for longer. That's the logic behind it, I guess. Anyway, all that's to say that I definitely see the sorts of sites like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, even YouTube, I'm sure. Around here, this is Instagram Live, Facebook, all those live sites. People want to be in contact, but live video is the way that is the most popular. Yeah, people should wash their hands. Don't touch their face. But these things aren't really like new information. It's just forced the reminder that people shouldn't be unclean. They should wash their hands and other things. It was pretty much our fault that this whole problem started in the first place. And what strikes me as more interesting is just how fast everything came crashing down. It took only like a month of secrecy before pretty much the whole nation blew up. And that doesn't seem like it should be that easy if everything's based on everything else, which I think is like the checks and balances thing. If you have one thing that can come down so easily, maybe it wasn't that strong to begin with. Yeah, the system of everything, food services, businesses. I guess I'm just saying that it was all really fragile, but we had this cover of stability until it came down, and then I thought, wow, it didn't take that much for everything to just blow up. This has been years in the making, since like the 90s. You have Microsoft and Apple and whatever else they've made, and you got smartphones and the internet, and everything's built around that. But just like that, it all changed. And for now, the internet's still up, but I could definitely see it being an issue. Internet isn't technically a necessity. You can live without it. Yeah, that's basically what the gist of it is. Like conspiracy almost. China knew better. Why didn't they tell anybody? And the response to that is because they're so reliant on us for trade agreements. Since like, I don't know, let's say 3/4 of all of their business is with American companies shipping out stuff to us. If we suddenly find out that they're infected, we're going to cut off those ties with them and not want to do business with them anymore, which is pretty much what's happened anyways. They would have been better off just being forthcoming with us. And I guess you could say that it's their fault if it's that simple. But I think also there's and I don't know how much of it's factual, of the same thing happening in America, which is my whatever vice president, and then they tell what the news media tells what they want to tell to everybody else. There's 5 or 6 levels of censorship that takes place. So I don't know how you could avoid that except for just having it straight from the source, having journalists that do live videos without any fear of losing their job or something. And I don't know if they have agreements where they sign a contract or something of confidentiality where they're not going to go blabbing stories that they know about. It kind of circles back to the price gouging. If you have inside knowledge, is it wrong to not share it? I'd say so. More information is a bad thing. Hysteria is already existing. How does the hysteria get worse except for if people heed terrible advice? Yeah, that's a big issue, actually. It comes from China. China needs our business and we need their drugs. So they just forced up all these things of how unstable we are. Yeah, we're vulnerable because we completely rely on them. But they don't really have a good track record of being trustworthy either. I just think if we can't trust them to tell us something that's bad, what are the other things? That's sensationalist. They weren't forthcoming about this thing, so what else aren't they telling us that we should know about? They just tell us what they want us to hear because they know that we're their main business suppliers or purchasers. They supply to us. And that's probably the bigger problem. We don't really need that many electronics right now, but we have a serious need for especially pharmaceutical drugs. If we shut down, and that's probably, to tell you the truth, the only reason why they haven't shut down the airports, because they need those channels for the drugs to come in. But you could just make it to the point where it's just private airfare only. Pharmaceutical companies bringing drugs, other shipments of food, although we don't really have that much food that comes out of the United States. Maybe some fruits and vegetables from Mexico. I think it's on that front we're pretty independent. We grow a lot of food in America. So I don't know how I got to the point where we're so incredibly reliant on the drugs that they make. Probably just as simple as it's cheaper. You can't really fly a bunch of bananas from across the world, but you can bring them up from Mexico or South America. Yeah, I think we've done that for a long time. We've always compromised on our health and safety because it is cheaper. That's like all the lawsuits. The one that came out with, I think it was the talcum powder. They knew it wasn't that good for people, but they were unwilling to change because probably it's just as simple as it's cheaper. It's cheaper to keep buying what they already have, and it's definitely cheaper not to have people research how to fix the problem. So China's stuff is bad, but I don't know what the alternative is. This seems like almost a bigger issue than the virus. Such an interconnected mesh of reliance. I think they'd be fine without us, but we wouldn't be fine without them. All that we give them is just money. So that's all the only value that we provide. They provide us with parts for our cars, parts for our electronics, the drugs, obviously. So it took this long to get to this point, but it seems like it was just too easy for it to break everything. Who knows how long we've been entrenched with complete reliance on them, since at least the 80s, I'd guess. They don't really supply us anything. Yeah, it's valuable to us. It's just not like, if we could go back to the 40s, I guess it was probably more made in America, not made in China. And this could be a time when we come to our senses and just realize that this is ludicrous. Because just talking right now, I guess it wasn't really that long ago. Let's say in World War II, we didn't have things coming in that much imported. It was mostly made in America, to the point where people got greedy and they wanted to make more of a profit on things. They'll probably lose a major market share just because it's forced. Even if people voluntarily decide that they're done with China and we need to be less reliant on them, it's the same argument as fossil fuels and green energy. It's a serious issue, but it only really matters when it matters, the time being now. And then I would probably assume and imagine that as soon as this thing blows over, assuming that the world's not ending, people will forget about it. Well, it was, yeah. Supposedly it was caused by eating undercooked meat or something. Some strange animal, bat meat or something. And they eat rats over there in China and some other just weird practices. But I don't think it's been more than like a 3-month ordeal. In the first month was China stuff, and then month 2 was dormancy, even though we didn't know how bad it was until month 3. And then the whole thing blew up. And I thought it was just a kind of a joke. People were just flipping out over nothing. But it sort of forced us to respond to it. I don't think it's almost that big of a deal. I don't think I'd die from it. But the problem is that everybody else feels that way, so they go in and they buy toilet paper and they buy a bunch of soap and they buy a bunch of other stuff. So when we go to the store, we can't find stuff that we need, so that's a problem. It's their fear playing into our fear of not having food, and then the quarantine, yada, 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 yada. Wet marketplace. Source of the animal. Well, they do eat dogs too, dog meat, and other unclean animals. But I guess you could probably pretty much eat anything as long as you cooked it long enough. Cooked it to a crispy, burnt piece of meat. So it says that this turns off in 20 seconds. I didn't realize that Instagram was timed. I just think we need real news. We need non-censored information. People that aren't afraid to speak the truth and not get shut down. And if it turns off in 3 seconds, I guess bye. Reconnecting? Oh yeah, it's over. Bam. Well, I'm still on my other channels, but I'm going to wrap up here too. This has been a session. My thoughts, as coherent as I can be at this time in the night. And thanks for joining in, for watching this. If you watch this later, thanks, God bless, and I'll see you soon. This is Brandon from NowMentor, signing off. Thanks for watching, y'all.